very unfortunate, but this is not the first time that it's happening, and very responsibly, I would like to say that maybe this is not the last time it's happening either. What we have is the reported visibility was 3,200 meters. Actually, that is sufficient to spot the runway at 3 kilometers. And I dare say that this is not the correct visibility passed on. People have been passing judgment looking at the CCTV footage and saying that there was plenty of visibility. These are foolish statements. The visibility that matters is...
So you're saying, let me interrupt you here. You're making a point. You're saying that the visibility was not enough, but even then, the pilots or the crew members were told that the visibility is good enough to land the aircraft.
Now, that's where I was coming to. When you fly these important people, the pilots are put under pressure, not directly by the person. Say, Mr. Ajit Pawar would never have gone and told Sumit, go and land this airplane. No, it's paraphernalia that accompanies the people who book the charters. Yesterday, one of the panelists in a show had picked up, said that the same company had a crash in Mumbai, but nobody even came to know. I mean, nobody even talks of it because the public memory is short. But we are not expecting the public and the journalists to speak about it. We want the Air Accident Investigation Bureau. Have you completed that exercise of closing that investigation? No. Any incident that happens, there is a human mindset to create a conspiracy out of this. Since this is my field of specialization, I know that there is no conspiracy. No.
Hello and a warm welcome to HW News Network, your one-stop show, truth be told, for some engaging and thought-provoking conversations. Maharashtra Deputy Chief Minister Ajit Pawar died in a plane crash yesterday when the aircraft was about to land in Baramati. Now, 6 people died along with Ajit Pawar, but there are lots of questions as to what really went wrong. Now, I'm going to talk to you about the Civil Aviation Ministry statement which has come out, and this again leads to a number of questions. Now, the sequence which they have, which actually led to Ajit Pawar's plane crash, including a potentially worrying point that the crew did not give readback of the landing clearance. Now, that's question number one, that why this landing clearance or the readback of the landing clearance, why was it not given? Now, what we are told is that at 8:18 a.m., the plane which was registered as VTSSK established contact with the Baramati airport. And at that time, the pilot, who had a flying experience of over 15,000 hours, and also the co-pilot, Shambhavi Pathak, who had flown for about 1,500 hours, they were advised of weather conditions and advised to land at their discretion. Now, the crew, what the ministry's official statement has said, asked about the winds and the visibility. They were then told that visibility was around 3,000 meters or 3 kilometers, which is considered fairly standard and enough to attempt a landing. The aircraft then reported its final approach to runway 11. Immediately afterwards, the pilot indicated that the landing strip was not in sight and was told to initiate a go-around, which is a standard operating procedure again, if an initial landing is aborted at any time till the plane comes to a full stop. So, and after the go-around, what we are told is that the crew was asked again about its position, and the pilot reported the final approach. Confirmation the runway was now visible was asked and given. Now, the plane was then cleared to land at about 8:43 a.m. However, there was no readback of the landing clearance. Now, this is a point which everyone is asking, that why there was no readback of the landing clearance. And the ATC at about 8:44 saw that the aircraft was already caught in flames when it was around the threshold of the runway. Now, what is this air mishap all about? What actually went wrong? Now, can there be an honest probe? Because what we are told is that the DGCA will be conducting the probe. So, joining me this evening is President of the Airline Pilot Association of India, Sam Thomas, joins us. Thank you so much, Sam, for joining. It's always a pleasure having you on the program. And the first question: what do you say about this air mishap which happened yesterday? Could it have been averted? Was it something which, I mean, what would you say? The manner in which the plane landed and was caught in flames, what would you say to that?
Ma'am, first of all, very unfortunate, but this is not the first time that it's happening, and very responsibly, I would like to say that maybe this is not the last time it's happening either, because a lot of things need to be fixed. And somehow in India, we don't hold anybody accountable. There is no provision under which anybody can be held accountable except a dead pilot. Now, the pilots have been at the receiving end of a lot of flack for anything that goes wrong, even before an inquiry has been initiated. Now, firstly, our heartfelt condolences to the families of the Honorable Minister, his associates, and our heart goes out to the young co-pilot Shambhavi Pathak and Captain Sumit Kapoor, of course. Now, let's, without getting too technical, go into the facts that are presented at the moment. Now, firstly, the aircraft departed for Baramati, which is a VFR, Visual Flight Rules airfield. Now, you would typically not go to a visual airfield unless you have 5 kilometers of visibility. That is the regulation. Now, sometimes you do depart earlier so that you calculate and you expect that by the time I reach Baramati, the visibility would have improved. If it does not improve, I will hold overhead till the visibility improves. Now, what we have is the reported visibility was 3,200 meters. Actually, that is sufficient to spot the runway at 3 kilometers. And I dare say that this is not the correct visibility passed on. People have been passing judgment looking at the CCTV footage and saying that there was, plenty of visibility. These are foolish statements. The visibility that matters is...
So you are saying, let me interrupt you here. You're making an important point. You're saying that the visibility was not enough, but even then, the pilots or the crew members were told that the visibility is good enough to land the aircraft.
That is correct. That is correct. But because at 3,200 meters, you would have spotted the runway anyways. So how come you initiated a go around without having the field in sight? That very clearly indicates that a fictitious...
The ATC's end. So this looks like a mistake from the ATC's end.
Ma'am, there is no ATS unit in Baramati. This is just a couple of flight schools that are running, and that's sufficient. Baramati is a great place for flight schools because it's uninterrupted. The weather is generally fine. And some of the uncontrolled airfields all over the world have something called a CTAF, or a Common Traffic Advisory Frequency. And that's how it is done worldwide. Now here, what they do is a couple of not qualified but adequately trained people sit at a makeshift tower and advise airplanes, which is sufficient at most times. But then they need to be told by a qualified meteorological unit as to what exactly the visibility is. Now, meteorological units supporting the aviation in India leave a lot to be desired, and we've been in it and we've got used to it. But sometimes these can take you for a ride if the figures given are not up to the mark. And also,
this, Sam, is a telling commentary on how these academies, which are around the smaller airfields, function and operate, and about their competence, their efficiency. There are a lot of question marks. But if it's a small place like Baramati, like what you're saying, that there was no proper meteorological unit which was supporting the aviation, uh, so what does it go to show about our systems? And we are building airports after airports, but what about these smaller fields? What about their competence? What about their efficiency and capacities?
Ma'am, efficiency and what can I say, professionalism, they are not very sort of commonly associated with government agencies. I mean, the first thing they'll tell you is that we are short of staff. So the problem is solved. Then now you have another very commonly used server is down. These are the two issues that are given. Why are they getting away with it? There used to be a Kelkar committee in 1994, if I remember, which said that you're short of 4,000 air traffic controllers. We are in 2026 and you're still giving the same excuse. Now, each of the facets have the same problem. You have the regulator, which is overstretched. You have an air accident investigation board, which does not know what it's doing, and for good reason. And now you have the other governmental agencies that are on the periphery, but still can't get their act together. And inaugurating of airports, sloganeering, these are things that have been routinely happening. That does not mean that the standards are high. Now, having said that, for the flying clubs to function there, it's adequate. It's adequate because uncontrolled airfield allows you, otherwise you're getting into the moment you build a controlled airfield, you have the scheduled airlines coming in. Now that makes it that much more difficult for the children to fly. And so Baramati is a great place for training, ab initio training. But then we don't stop with ab initio training. You get into intermediate, then you get into advanced training. So those need airports in
No,
India,
but
which
I'm surprised that Baramati has been a bastion of the Pawar family. Why it didn't strike them to develop their capacity, or the government should have thought about it? At least the politicians, the local politicians over there could have pointed this out. I mean, you had Sharad Pawar, you had Ajit Pawar, you had the CPS you had the Parth Pawar, the entire clan is over there. Sugar lobby. It's like a big, big bastion. How did Baramati miss this? Now, who is to be blamed for this?
ma'am, they don't have the technical expertise. Now, you see, you don't expect Mr. Sharad Pawar, who is a union minister and he's been a national leader for a long time. You don't expect him to have expertise in aviation and the infrastructure. His advisors. Now, when there are no qualified advisors, if you notice, all ministries, all departments are run by non-qualified people. You have a sports federation which is run by a politician. You have a Sangeet Natak Academy run by somebody selling tickets. So is aviation. There is a big reluctance that we find to bring in subject matter experts. In fact, we had visited the Air Accident Investigation Bureau, and the head was so much against even us visiting him that he made no bones about it. He said, I have experts, 250 experts who are secret. I don't know if some intelligence agencies are supplying him these experts, because we've been here for 31 years flying airplanes. We know anybody who has touched an airplane remotely will be directly or indirectly known to us. So to say that you have secret experts doesn't really, hit it with. But now, coming back to this particular incident, yesterday one of the panelists in a show had picked up, said that the same company had a crash in Mumbai. But nobody even came to know. I mean, nobody even talks of it because the public memory is short. But we are not expecting the public and the journalists to speak about it. We want the Air Accident Investigation Bureau. Have you completed that exercise of closing that investigation? No. A
So
hun-
you are
hundred.
saying, that there was already an investigation pending as far as this Learjet 45 aircraft is concerned. There was an accident in Mumbai, you're pointing out, and that probe did not get completed. And here you have another crash.
Correct. Correct. It's not really pointing fingers at the Learjet. Learjet is not the easiest aircraft to fly. Let me tell you that. It's one of the fastest corporate jets built during its time. You need, it comes under the category of a wild stallion. You really need skills to get that airplane flying. It's a great aircraft to fly, but it's similar to the MiG-21 almost. If you slack even for a second, it goes out of your hand. But in this particular case, the pilots were pretty sort of experienced, and I don't think that would have been a concern. And Learjet, this particular company has at least 7 Learjets, so of various models, and it has been functioning pretty well. But I can tell you from personal experience that you cannot slack while flying a Learjet. So that is also a concern. What is baffling is when the visibility reported is 3,200 meters, how did you conduct an approach, which is not legal? Now, look at the other side of it. When
But
you
what does
fly,
it go to show? Sam, what does it go to show? You are saying, I mean, like, what does it indicate? The aircraft missed the runway. Then the first landing was aborted. There was no readback after the ATC after the ATC clearance. Now, what does this go to show? Whose fault is it? Where does the buck stop here?
no, firstly, let's take the case of the readback. Now, we don't have the transcripts. Sometimes you read back, and if it's not a proper ATS unit, it might not record it, because this is almost a reflex readback. When the ATC says Sierra Sierra Kilo cleared to land, automatically it comes clear to land, runway 11 Sierra Sierra Kilo. So that is what is it. So sometimes when you transmit from low altitude, which you are, while it may not have reached the ATC, that is one point. The other is you call field in sight. So it indicates that you have seen the runway, but sometimes in low level fog, what happens, you see it now, you don't see it now. It's called fog in patches. It happens. So that's another. But the legality part is you cannot commence an approach before you have the requisite visibility and ceiling requirements. Now, that's where I was coming to. When you fly these important people, the pilots are put under pressure, not directly by the person. Say, Mr. Ajit Pawar would never have gone and told Sumit, go and land this airplane. No, it's the paraphernalia that accompanies this. The people who book the charters, they tell you, so and so, an indirect kind of pressure.
And
Not
this normally happens, and this normally happens with the politicians, because we've traveled with the politicians where you're right that the crew who's traveling with the politicians always says, "Oh, we are getting late for a meeting. Please hurry up." That's what they do. It's like a common
yes,
thing.
yes, they do. They inadvertently do that to show their power, which they've been doing all over, but not realizing that they are putting their own life in very grave danger when they do it. So there was this minister, I remember he sent me a note while I was delayed out of Mumbai due very, very heavy rains. And he sent me a note and said, I'm minister something. I'd like to know what the delay is. This is in addition to the announcements that I make every 3 or 4 minutes, albeit in a very jocular manner. I can't tell them all technical things. I was asking them to look out and see if you can see the other aircraft. If you can't see the other aircraft, what do you expect me to see when this aircraft is at 200 kilometers per hour hurtling down the runway? So most passengers are okay. Most of them would not have a problem. But there are people, and particularly the politicians, they don't know what they're doing. Their job is to get from place A to place B at that time so that their followers are waiting there and they can't disappoint them. They don't know that they are putting their own life in danger. But it happens. It has happened with the Speaker of the Lok Sabha, Mr. Balayogi. It has happened with the YSR, Andhra, and it has happened not really. So when I'm talking of pressures, that inadvertent pressures that come on, the CEO of the squadron in Sulur, who's a topmost officer, was flying General Bipin Rawat, CDS at that time. You see where that ended up. So this factor is there. If you don't heed that or pay cognizance to that, then you will end up in trouble, because it takes 2 bad seconds and that's the end of the story.
But I want to come to the probe in this particular issue. Now, you are saying that the bureau, which is supposed to be investigating this, that is not doing an honest job. I also heard you speaking saying that there are competent people to do this probe. So who will do the probe? If the bureau, which is entrusted with the probe job, if bureau is not doing a competent job, then you might as well just not give any kind of probe to that agency.
Correct. That's exactly what we would like. But then you just go through the history of that. You had several accidents, and post the Mangalore crash of the 737 of India Express, that's when they decided that, okay, we need a probe agency. Now you made the constitution of that probe agency. Now this is bureaucracy. This is how Indian bureaucracy works. Each one is worse than the other. Okay. So then they start drafting a constitution. Now, laws are made by bureaucrats in such a way that they cannot be implemented. You take any law. It cannot be implemented without explicit clearance or a permit or some kind of permission to be taken from somebody who is king. So that's how this. So when you start the bureau, you say that you need 20 years experience in air crash investigation. You've started the investigation bureau today. How can you have 20 years of experience? Where were you expecting this to? You could only have got them from countries other than India. Now, what they do is, if you get people from the US and UK and European countries, they have a bad habit of telling the truth all the time. That's not compatible with our culture. So
because we are more involved with the cover-up. We are more involved with the cover-up. That look, this bad reality should not come out.
Yes. That's unfortunately the truth. Now, since your program is Truth Be Told, you better tell the truth or find somebody who can tell you the truth. Now, as unpleasant as it is, this is the fact of the matter. So when you go around, so now you start looking at it as a rehabilitation center for ex-Air Force officers. Okay, if you're taking a pilot and putting him there for this one, I can understand he knows something about flying. He might have flown in the Air Force. Now you take somebody who has not flown, whose credentials are questionable. Now, people coming from the armed forces, what happens is they give their own certificate. War stories told in a mess bar don't necessarily translate to the truth. I did this, I did that, I found, there are lots of friends. I mean, I'm a civilian from my class. So you can imagine, I know them intimately, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But when you are put as the in charge or the complete aviation air accident investigation bureau, this is exactly what you will get. Show me one accident that they have solved. What is the where are you going to get these people from? When there was a crash in Calicut, I remember everybody, including me, were called to say, can you head the probe? I said, how does that work? If you notice in the Calicut crash, one thing common everywhere is the Indian public gets into action. It's out of their good nature. Okay, it's not a bad thing. But don't go near a crashed airplane. It will explode at any time. And secondly, don't touch the passengers trying to rescue them. They will have severe, they'll be crippled because this is an impact. The specialized people have to come and remove the passengers, even if they are stuck. What about the crash tenders? What about the emergency equipment that was supposed to reach the aircraft in the Calicut crash? Did they reach there? Was anybody held accountable? Then you have these airport directors. Please find out if one of them is responsible for anything, including safety of the aircraft that is parked in their vicinity or in their premises. Nothing. Like I started off saying, we do not hold anybody accountable. We do not have the provisions to hold anybody accountable. He'll just be at best transferred to some other place and he'll come back with a promotion. So nothing is going to happen about it. Who's going to do the investigation depends on whether you want the truth to come out or you want to complete a paper exercise. Most cases, you just want to complete the paper exercise. AAIB is good enough to do that.
I remember having interviewed you also during the Ahmedabad air crash which happened. And at that time, the same questions we were asking, that will the lessons be learned, will things improve? And now here we have another, just within a few months' time. I mean, from June and now it's almost like the end of Jan. Few months later, we again have a crash. So obviously the lessons are not learned. But what would you really recommend in this particular case? You also pointed out that the visibility was not clear, but even then, the visibility was told that it's clear and the aircraft was fit enough to land. Who would you hold responsible if you were to head the probe from?
No, firstly, I would, bring in subject matter experts to improve the system. Now, why does a person cheat? So, we belong to the International Federation of Airline Pilots Association, where it's a foreign body. There, it's not really blaming somebody. In India, what we do is we either envy somebody or we blame somebody. These are two very strong feelings that we are sort of born with. So that doesn't necessarily give you a solution. That never, in fact, gives you a solution. Now, why is a person trying to cheat? Let's call it an effort to cheat when there is no visibility. Because, you see, there is category 1 ILS, there is category 2, there is category 3A and 3B. 3C is not in this one. We were all qualified on Cat 3B, which needed only 50 meters of visibility. Now, in India, you have very few pilots, except for the people who are in the airlines, are on category 3. Now, category 3 requires the pilot, the equipment, that's the aircraft, and the regulations to be on par so that they can effect a landing in low visibility. Now, these low visibility landings are never given to the NSOPs. That's the charter operators. Why? They don't know why. The aircrafts are qualified. The runways are not qualified. Therefore, you cannot do. Now, there are something called the RNAV approaches. World over, you don't need an instrument landing system. You have an equivalent, a cheaper solution, basically. Can you implement that? Yes, but we don't have staff. Now, should I wait for your staff to get qualified and come back? And why should staff join you, by the way? You are giving substandard salaries, substandard perks, and why should the staff join you? Because kids these days don't find your ecosystem good enough for them to join. So, system from ground up has to be, and you have to remove the bureaucrats out from this. You cannot be from Animal Husbandry Ministry and come back to Civil Aviation Ministry and pretend that you know a lot. So then there is this UPSC, which brings the second rung of people into government jobs. That, I put it to you, should be abolished very quickly, because show me one person who is, other than self-promoting, you show me anywhere, any ministry, not Civil Aviation Ministry alone. Civil Aviation Ministry causes a lot of problem because the results are catastrophic. Your finance ministry can keep doing whatever they want. It's the common person who pays, cries, goes home and sits. Whereas here, you will have very, very devastating results. And You're saying that we spoke about 2 crashes in a space of 6 to 7 months. Do you know the number of crashes that we missed? We had near misses and incidents that went out of reportage because everybody even the media and everything will come only when there's a crash. This crash is more important because it cost the life of a deputy chief minister.
Yes.
Now, whether you like it or not, a deputy chief minister of a state like Maharashtra is perceived to be much, much higher value than a normal person who got run over by a bus. So, the investigations and the follow-up would be that much more. However, when you lack the competency, no matter how the intent is, there's that much you can do about it. You can give some story saying that the pilot missed the runway. Why did he miss the runway? I mean, for last 15,000 hours, he has not missed the runway. Why did he start the approach when the visibility was 3,200? Was it 3,200? That's exactly what I'm telling. Sometimes,
But
yes.
Sam, if I may interrupt you here very briefly, and then I'll end the program. That would you also give credence to a number of conspiracy theories which are coming up? I mean, what happened and to the visibility? Was it a deliberate act? That I'm not able to understand. Do you think some kind of a conspiracy in this mishap?
Any incident that happens, there is a human mindset to create a conspiracy out of this. Since this is my field of specialization, I know that there is no conspiracy. No, nothing whatsoever. But you cannot, even by me making the statement, the conspiracy theorists will say, hey, this guy is sold out. How can he say even before anything else? He's not willing to put his neck on the line for everything else, but he's now ruling out conspiracy. Conspiracy is visible. You know how it goes. So the politicians can keep, since it's a very high profile politician involved, I'm sorry, there would be that angle. I'd say he wanted to join it.
Like Mamta Banerjee and Akhilesh Yadav said that there should be a probe which should be conducted by a Supreme Court monitored agency, something like that. Now, would that be good enough to have an honest probe into this?
I won't put it as a honest probe, but that would also, why people ask for a judicial inquiry is only because everybody can go, any person, any Indian citizen, or anybody who feels he's connected with this one can approach that commission and give his views. Whereas nobody, unless the AAIB calls you, you cannot go there and give your views. In fact, you will be prevented from giving your views, even if you're a subject matter expert. So that way, they're free to ask. This is India. You can ask a Trump-monitored inquiry also, but will they give it to you is a different matter altogether.
Right. I'm glad you pointed out a lot of things, and I hope there are some learning lessons. But very quickly before I wind up, because since there was a politician here in the aircraft, not the lives of the ordinary people is any less. But what are the big takeaways for the politicians who are flying? And like what you said, that they are running against deadlines, they have to go from one meeting to the other. They better start having some subject expert also as part of their team. Would that be correct if they are flying? Somebody who knows aviation, somebody who knows the aircraft rules, etc.?
That would be a good start. That would be a really good start if they have somebody in their travel plans, and they have a lot of secretaries. One of the guys should be taking the call as to even briefing the. I fly VIPs a lot, and I fly some very, very good VIPs. So they know what it is. But sometimes, even inadvertently, they would see. It's not out of bad intention that they do it. So let me just give you a 10-second example. The moment some of the VIP sees me, they have this habit of telling, "Arey Thomas साहब, आप आ गए तो हम पहुंच जाएंगे. मेरे को पता है, बहुत अच्छा रहेगा." So now Thomas साहब thinks that he is the ultimate. That's human psychology. Ministers telling they're telling out of their good nature. I mean, It's just good. So that does not mean that I am the ultimate to take that. The moment I start believing that I am that ultimate Thomas G, then you would get into trouble. So even inadvertently, it's more awareness that needs to come to them. We need to speak to them. It's not often possible, but then we do speak to them. We, in a very casual manner, tell them, sir, आज नहीं लगता है, थोड़ा घूमना पड़ेगा. So they understand. आप देख लीजिए, आप देख लीजिए. I mean, directly they don't put it. But the sidekicks, oh my God, they are uncontrollable. They are a species of their own. So that happens. Hope it never happens again. But
Yeah, just hope so. Thank you so much, Sam. It was wonderful talking to you on HW News. Thank you. Thank you so much.
thank you.